Hi, everyone. I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to just take a moment before I start forgetting about the details of the trip that I just took to Israel to share a recap with you of my experience. First of all, I want to thank the Federation for hosting me and Eliza, many of the congregants, and many of the community members. It was an incredible trip. I want to thank Mr. Weinstein for financing it for a lot of us. I want to thank uh, Chuck and the shul president for letting me go. Um, I really, the main thing that I wanted to share with you based on this trip was that the people of Israel are incredible. That we saw some very alarming and very difficult images because of October 7th and the war, and I'll talk to some of that. And my voice is a little nasal. I'm a little under the weather. Definitely weary from traveling, so feel free to put this on double speed if you want. We arrived on Monday last week, and the Federation mission was over on Monday, and then I stayed Tuesday and Wednesday for my professional association solidarity mission right after that, and the Rabbinical Council of America. They what they've been through is something that Americans cannot fathom, and the evidence of that is still very much there. Just want to highlight a few of the most impressive parts of the trip. The Federation is doing amazing work, and they're helping sponsor an organization called Ha'ogen, and we met with 5 widows of combat soldiers, reservists. And these women were just the most incredible, courageous women, just beautiful human beings and personalities dedicated to the greater good, just amazing people. And they have their husbands served hundreds of days away from home, and they have been through a tremendous crisis manning the fort at home and trying to keep their heads up. We met 5 women: Noga, Nava, Sarah, Jenya, and a woman named Mevaseret. And I took some notes, and I just want to share them with you. Noga wrote a book to help other wives whose husbands are away from home for really extended period of time, and she wrote a children's book to help the children, and she has weathered her stresses with unbelievable grace. She's coming to Richmond, so I look forward to telling the shul congregation more about that when she gets here, because she's a very inspiring individual. Met another wife, Nava. She has 11 children, and her husband was away for the holidays, and now he's going to be away serving again in the war on Purim and Pesach. And this organization sees these women, helps them get along, gift cards, taking their kids out for ice cream, taking them out to the pool, dropping off pizzas, because life is very difficult when all of a sudden your children's father is not there to help. And this woman, Sarah, was 6 months pregnant when her husband left town for an indefinite period of time, and she has a special needs child, and she had a child that refused to go to school, and a child that wanted to be held, but their father of the child wasn't there, and she's pregnant, and she wasn't able to lift the child. And just simple things about worrying all day, every day, will your husband come back alive? He's a combat soldier. And just dealing with hyperventilating and being hospitalized from stress, paralyzed during the 8th month of pregnancy, and can't move. And what do you do when you have all boys, as Sarah does, who are all very hyperactive, and there's a war going on? So the government can help, but they have limited solutions. And so the Jewish people really stepped up to provide nonprofits to help with that. But just to hear their stories is really, it's heartbreaking. And, as someone who never really lived through a serious war on our own home front, it's you get a whole new kind of respect for people who put country before themselves, and in this case, the only Jewish country in the world. Jenya talked about how she had to leave her job to take care of her children because her husband was off fighting the war, and she couldn't do her job, so the company laid her off. And what that was for her to all of a sudden be living off of unemployment, and just talking to us about her own personal experiences and stresses. This woman, Mivaseret, her husband was also her business partner in a family business, and the business went under because he wasn't there. So just struggles with income, struggles with worry. Mivaseret told a story about how her child hardly ever saw the father because he's off fighting in war. So she took a picture of the father off the refrigerator. It was a magnet of a picture of her father, and she would show her father, whose picture on this magnet, what she was doing in school. And she would cry when she wanted to cry to her father, the picture of her father on this magnet. And it's a very pathetic and difficult situation for the mother to see. And I shouldn't say pathetic, but pitiful. And this organization is created to help sustain them so that they can strengthen each other. How Ogen is really beautiful. Really just unbelievable women. I want to move on now to another part of the trip that really affected me. We heard from the acting ambassador of the United States to Israel, who spoke about how she saw Israel act with such moral courage during warfare. And it was important for me to hear an American diplomat talk like that with such conviction. We heard from the medical director of the hospital described to us, the Shaare Zedek Hospital, described to us how he's part of the national committee to determine who's alive and who's not alive based on video evidence. And that was just gut-wrenching. And specifically, he told us how a terror victim that he helped nurse back to health, a girl who he treated after a terror attack, was still in contact with him and told him how hard it is for her to know that the terrorist who injured her, who caused this attack, is now back out on the streets because he was released in this deal. So what Israel is going through is very difficult. He spoke about that with such empathy and such passion that really affected us. And how afraid this patient was that he still keeps in touch with, knowing that this person is now released and out on the loose. We met with an incredible organization doing work. It's called Social Delivery. They take excess from companies clothing companies, furniture companies, a lot of different companies, and all of their excess would end up in landfills. But they've taken upon themselves to efficiently and effectively take the corporate excess and distribute it to those in need, especially due to October 7th. There are thousands of people displaced that our media doesn't talk about who are not in their homes, and I'll get to more of that in a moment. So we also met with small business owners, the federation's helping provide an organization with stopgap measures to provide interest-free loans because these businesses were going to go under because of the war. It's called Spark IL. And I just have so much to say, and I'm sorry that it's taking so long. I hope you're listening to this on double speed. The most powerful part of the trip was, of course, visiting Kibbutz Nir Oz. The day after the bodies were returned of the Bibas family, we were at their house. To see their house really affected us, and it wasn't just them; it was also their neighbor Oded Lifshitz, who just was the most beautiful person. You saw, you could see these Bibas children running around in their front yard, and now you see all that destroyed. Oded Lifshitz was a believer in peace and wasn't just into gardening. He was into a lot of amazing skills, talents, and hard to think straight. The family that affected me the most was the Shem Tov family, and this is why I didn't speak about this morning at services during the Bas Mitzvah. A family of 5, and we were outside their house. The terrorists came in and murdered the mother and the father in front of their children, and then burned the house to the ground with the children inside. There are very few levels of horror, depravity that can come close to that. So, sorry. So to bear witness and to see that, and what I kind of discussed with my group that I traveled to these sites with was that the anger and the solidarity connected to all of that is a love. It's almost inexplicable connection to people I never met, I never knew, but nevertheless, we feel very much a part of them. We met with a sister who lost her brother in the attacks, and she described him with such love, and it's very unfair that there are so many people who had to sit Shiva because of anti-Semitism, hatred, and a violent animosity towards our people. And it's going to take all of us to come together and to strengthen one another, even from across the pond. The RCA had us meet with the Engelman family, and Ishai Engelman, he's a rabbi and a teacher in the yeshiva, and he was called into action. And during the war, the largest piece of shrapnel, he showed us the shrapnel, went through his body and through a lot of his organs. The doctors really called him a miracle, and he's still recovering and dealing with PTSD, and he's a father of young children, and he hasn't been able to go back to work. And an organization called Leman Achai is helping the family cope. It's really incredible. He's a chazan. He's trying to get his voice back. The doctor said he would never sing again, but he's already proven them wrong. And the wife was there, described to us what it was like to get a call in the middle of the night that her husband was severely injured, and people died all around him, but he survived. And she had texted him the time before to please be careful, and he said that he took a few extra feet away from what a dangerous area, which saves his life. An IED went off and killed many of his comrades. So That's Rabbi Yishai Engelman. We met with someone who was at the Nova Festival who survived, and she described in harrowing detail how she survived and what it was like to be at the concert and to run away and to have friends who she lost. We met with a family, the Shushan family, whose son was very high up in the army, and he was just a beautiful soul, and they sat shiva for him, and they described how he graduated with honors, but he didn't tell his family to come to the ceremony because he was too humble to tell them about the honors he was receiving. He led his men from in front of the battle. His name was Yair Shushan, and it was amazing to meet with parents and families of the most most remarkable people. So I encourage you to look up all these names if you can as well. We met with a program called Barkai, and the rabbi of a community called Yad Binyamin. His name is Rabbi Hillel. He's the rabbi of the Perez family. They had one child who was injured on October 7th and another child who was a hostage who they later found out was killed on October 7th. And they described what it was like to be a rabbi for a family of hostages. The mother can't eat, can't sleep for months on end, just cannot function. And of course, we're familiar with that from the Goldberg, Poland story, and just can't think about what their child is going through. They didn't know their child had been killed until many months later. He was describing to us what it was like to be a rabbi of a congregation in Israel on October 7th. And by the end of Shabbos, they weren't saying, he said Shabbat Shalom to somebody, and the person said, no, it's not Shabbat Shalom, it's Shabbat Milchama. It's not Shalom, it's not peace, it's war. Just taking care of hostage families, and not sure if the hostage will come back or not come back. And there's one story in particular I wanted to share with you. So this difficult story. A mother called up the rabbi and said that she wants a heter, rabbinic permission, to get an abortion. And he said, why do you want to abort your baby? He was surprised. And he said, this is what it was like to be a rabbi. The mother said, I don't want to bring a child into this world where they burn babies. And babies were burned on October 7th. And he had to walk her through that. And eventually she decided not to abort the baby, and gave birth. But these were some of the things that we're not seeing here that they had to go through. Another time, the rabbi described that an American counterpart of his asked what they could do to help Israelis, and he wasn't sure what to tell them, but his wife, this Rebbitzin of Yad Binyamin, said the women of the soldiers, the wives of the soldiers, need strength, they need chizuk. So this community bought pearl necklaces for the wives of the soldiers, and he described with great emotion what it did. This gesture of unity. I think I'll conclude just by telling you about what it was like on the Lebanese border, because we went to the Gaza border with Federation. I went to the Lebanese border with the RCA, and Kiryat Shimona, Even Menachem, Ma'alot. You can look up these places, really decimated. But Kiryat Shimona is very scary. People are afraid to go back to their homes, and will the North, will they move back? That's the big question. And people are determined to rebuild it, but the Federation, again, is doing an amazing job sustaining places like Kiryat Shimona. There are tens of thousands of displaced people. What do you do with them? You can imagine the issues of education and abandonment of houses that don't get lived in, besides the houses that I saw with direct hits from Hezbollah rockets. These communities, they need our help, and I hope to share with the congregation more ways in which we can help. There's a lot more to say. Feel free to call me for any follow-up, and maybe I'll share some of this in shul in a different venue. Linda Griff took amazing notes, but there are a lot of bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah celebrations going on, and I don't think that a lot of what I have to say is appropriate for those happy occasions. But I just, the main message I want to share with you is that seeing with your own two eyes the impact of this war, the atrocities of October 7th and the ensuing war, is difficult and challenging, but really the most amazing people in the world are the people of Israel. And whatever we can do to stand up for them and to support them, we should commit to doing that. So again, I hope you're listening to this on double speed. I know there's some rambling. I wanted to share with you my thoughts about this incredible trip, and I hope you got a little bit of an insight as to what we're dealing with as a people, and the Almighty should look after our brothers and sisters in Israel and take us towards victory and towards peace. Thank you, and have a great rest of your week. Shavua Tov.